Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Blake Silverman from Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons and news writer for Sports Illustrated. And we do not have Wes Davenport with us tonight. He is off this week for some very exciting things that I'll let him share once he's back. But we do have Robbie Batalon back on the show, Detroit Bad Boys own. You see his byline all over the site. We're recording Sunday night right after the Pistons' exciting win over the Magic. Robbie, how are you doing? Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate you asking. It's going to be hard to fill Wes's shoes. Those are some of the biggest shoes in the business, so I'll do my best. But very fun game. It was off to a rocky start, and of course, this team can't shoot, but hey, they keep winning ball games somehow.
Yeah, the Pistons go 4 for 30 from three and somehow find a way to win this game. Credit to them. Like, I know a lot of the national narrative over this past week, and we haven't recorded since the Pistons played the Spurs or the Thunder or that crazy win over the Cavs on Friday night. I think a lot of the narrative was just maybe some of the Pistons' flaws were showing a little bit. They go 9 for 27 from three against the Thunder, 6 for 27 against the Cavs. Those are both wins. Obviously, you don't have SGA against the Thunder, no Donovan Mitchell or James Harden against the Cavs. You do take that loss to the Spurs in a pretty competitive game, but I thought it was a win that you come out of this week 3-1 really, and especially this game against the Magic that just happened. You go 4 for 30 from three. No, you're not getting shooting from really anywhere, and we'll talk about that some more. But I guess what was your main takeaways, and how do you think the Pistons were able to pull this one off specifically?
Yeah, I think after the Bulls game, I think I wrote the recap for that one, and then I was looking at what games were coming up, and this absolutely looked like a gauntlet when we were not even this past week, but even next week too. Mm-hmm. They see Cleveland again and they see San Antonio again, but instead of Little Caesars Arena, they're going to be on the road, and this team just continues to surprise me. And as much as the league keeps moving this direction of spacing and 3-point shooting, it feels like the Pistons are like, nah, we're good. We're good in the paint. We like scoring down low. We're just going to keep going this way and doing our own thing. And I think it's really been eye-opening for me, because I feel like I fall into that, like, oh, they need more shooting. They don't have enough shooting. And frankly, like over the last 3 games, over some of the best talent in the league, they don't need to shoot, and they're still getting the job done. And when Asar is playing like he did tonight, especially defensively, I don't know. They just continue to prove me wrong over and over again, and it's very fun to see.
Yeah, it was an incredible game from Asar against the Magic, and just defensively, like, we know how much of an impact he makes, and just some of the defensive plays he's able to make really just scream like that's a playoff play. And I know the offense will always be a question with him, but he's been able to get the job done most of the time, at least not be a total black hole on that end. But yeah, the points in the paint aspect was what stood out for me. Let's just talk about the wins this week. This is what the Pistons had points in the paint wise. Against the Magic, the Pistons won points in the paint 66-32. Against the Cavs on Friday night, they won 68-56, which, the Cleveland matchup with Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, I think that one's a toss-up, but this team knows how to dominate down low and still able to score almost 70 points in the paint that game when you're not having a great game from shooting beyond the perimeter. And then against the Thunder, a depleted Thunder, just a caveat, but the Pistons outscored the Thunder in the paint 70-32. So obviously Jalen Duren puts up 33 points against the Cavs, and he was able to have a nice night against the Magic as well. Not like the craziest performance, 16 points, 10 rebounds, and you get 23 points out of Tobias Harris, who was able to make some good shots, and just nothing from Duncan Robinson against the Magic. 0 for 4 from 3, no points. So yeah, I think that is the story to really like take out from these. And I guess the question with this is, do you think it's a sustainable model to win in the postseason, or do you think teams like the Cavs, Celtics, Knicks will be able to find a way to minimize that?
It's hard to say that it's sustainable, but they kind of are sustaining it at the same time. Now if we're talking about a playoff series where, you can figure out who to put Evan Mobley on or Jared Allen on, and you can get creative with defensive assignments, that could be a different story. But it's just crazy to me that, even through these games, we still haven't had Stu back. So referring to even with Cleveland's points in the paint, they, still didn't even reach Detroit, but Stu wasn't there to help defend. And I think my worries, and I think this is probably if the number one worry I would say for Pistons fans coming, or just discussing playoffs, is their ability to shoot. If there's really one guy who's like a true threat from deep on this team, like if you can take him out of the game, or if you can force Asar to shoot, or, how can you get creative to try to prevent Detroit from getting into the paint? I think that's easier to do in a playoff series, or easier to show in a playoff series than it is to just show, on a Sunday night game. But the fact that this, like, going in, if you're scouting Detroit, they're scoring in the paint, you have to pack the paint, and for whatever reason, nobody can stop them. You know what I mean? And it's like, it just continues to be impressive night after night that it's kind of the exact same kind of style and physicality of just this gritty physical win, and they keep doing it to the best teams in the league.
Yeah, and even so, I mean, the Stu's absence is like, I felt the win after Cleveland, where first of all, Dennis Jenkins deserves some flowers for those 3 free throws he made. I mean, I thought it was a shooting foul at the end.
Me too.
I think, the Pistons have got, I don't want to say lucky, but the whistles went in their favor with those. I know the one with Jaylen Brown against the Celtics didn't end up working out, but how about Dennis Jenkins making those 3 free throws? And I feel like the discussion coming out of this week for the Pistons, like we already mentioned, is, does this team have what it takes to hold up in the playoffs, or will the shooting sort of hold them back? I saw, I'm sorry to the Cleveland reporter that I'm not remembering his name, but it was a piece on Cleveland.com where he said an unnamed Cavs player said in the locker room that, like, the Pistons aren't in their class, and they sort of feel like they could beat the Pistons in a 7-game series. I mean, I think any team would say that, so it's not really a crazy take. And I mean, I don't want to disparage the Cavs. Like, I read that story, and I think Jalen Tyson said he thinks that Cleveland can win in the playoffs, but they're not beating a Detroit team right now. So you have to see it on the floor. But I feel like the narrative just coming out of this week was a little bit like the Pistons are beating the Thunder, the Cavs. I mean, the Magic had Paolo, but Franz and Anthony Black are out. So I feel like it was a little of like wins against teams that aren't at full strength, but like the Pistons don't have Isaiah Stewart, who's one of the best rim protectors in the NBA, if not the best. So I feel like that got a little bit lost in the translation of everything. And like you were saying, just being able to find ways to win these games where you really shouldn't. Like, I don't think they should have won that game against Cleveland Friday, and they found a way to do it. Against the Magic, I mean, they were clearly the better team in the second half. Yeah, you go 4 for 30 from 3, but you're able to make up that scoring everywhere else, and the defense was so incredible. Do you see any credence in that narrative, or do you think like this Pistons team will just keep finding ways to win.
I think they're going to keep finding ways to win because, to your point too, if we go back even another week, the Knicks game, no Duren, no Stu, you're playing Paul Reed and Tolu Smith 48 minutes at center, and you still find a way to get the job done against the team that got you out of the playoffs last year. So it just seems like it's in this team's blood, it's in this team's culture that no matter who's up, like they're just ready to fight, they're ready to take on whoever. And to talk more to the playoff side of things, I think this team also has so much depth, and they're the pieces that I want to say are like in the rotation that are like 9 through 12, I think are all kind of unique in their own way. If you look at like Karras, Javante, Sasser, and Danis, and that kind of group of people that, based on the way that playoff game is going, I think you can pick and choose who out of that group, if you do need an extra punch somewhere, like if you need a little extra defense, you could go Javante. If you need more shooting, you could go Sasser. If you even want to throw Sasser some minutes, more playmaking, you could go Danis or LeVert. So I think the Pistons roster is able to adapt to whatever playoff series, whoever they're playing. I think that obviously they're happy to play whoever, but I also think the roster is built to adapt to different situations in the playoffs too.
Yeah, and I think you saw that a bit against Cleveland. I mean, it wasn't perfect. Like, it's a game where Cade Cunningham fouls out sooner than you want him to, and it goes to overtime, and you don't have Cade. And Sasser gets 11 minutes that game, which were not great. And I mean, we shouted out Danis for making those clutch free throws, but like, he didn't have the best game that we've seen from Danis Jenkins. But overall, they were able to find a way to win. And I mean, credit to Jalen Duren, who goes off for 33 points, I think ties a season high, and you get 18 from Asar and 25 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists from Cade before he goes out. And just like, I can't think about that game without laughing with like the horn situation that was going on. That was just wild. I'm thankful I was not at that game, because that would have been truly annoying. But yeah, just what an odd game, and what a win to find. Like, I feel like even though Cleveland doesn't have Donovan Mitchell, they don't have James Harden, it's a Cleveland team that has been really good even before James Harden came in. And when James Harden came in, they continued to be really good. They rattled off like a 7-game win streak at one point. So beating that team, again, they're depleted. They don't have their 2 best players on the floor, but that was really like a dogfight. It was like a Friday night LCA. It felt, I wasn't there, but it felt like a playoff atmosphere to me watching on the screen. So like, what'd you come away with from that win specifically? Or do you give any of the like, oh, no Harden, no Mitchell doubters any credit to that?
I think it's like, hey, it's not the Pistons' fault that Mitchell and Harden couldn't play. They're just going to show up and play whatever Cleveland Cavaliers are dressed for the night. So, but I also think I think Mobley and Allen, just like the way that they're a great pairing, and I think just very good defensively. I think they give Detroit problems just because Detroit likes to score down low, and they're so good defensively. I just think, like, I find it interesting that New York, like, not that Jeremy Sohan is like a Cade stopper in any way, but he was like a signing of like, oh, if we have to throw somebody else at Cade, like, he's an option. Granted, it didn't go well for Sohan a couple weeks ago, and it's like, with them bringing James Harden in as their like big time acquisition, like, I don't know is Dean Wade, is Donovan Mitchell going to guard Cade? You know what I mean? Like, from that standpoint, like, I think Cade like will feast during a Cavs series. It's the 2 big men that I think I fear the most, especially if like Kenny Atkinson wants to get creative and put Mobley on a SAR and like leave a SAR open at the 3-point line so Mobley can just hang in the paint and try to provide, like help side defense and whatnot. That's where I kind of fear Cleveland a little bit. But Harden can't guard Cade, Mitchell can't guard Cade, Dean Wade definitely can't guard Cade. So I don't, from a Cleveland standpoint, I don't know who's going to try to stop him.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And I was thinking about Cleveland when they made this trade and writing about them a little bit, and that was exactly my thought, no matter who they play. And I think the Pistons specifically bring them a tough matchup just because they have, with how the Bucks are looking, like I would say that the Pistons are going to have the best player in the playoffs in Cade Cunningham. And we'll see what happens with Giannis. But if the Pistons and Cleveland do meet in a postseason series, like Donovan Mitchell and James Harden are two players who you're going to want to get 25 a night out of. And it's like the same thing we talk about with Cade. Cade can hold up defensively. He does a great job on that end of the floor, but we just don't want him to have a ton of responsibility on his shoulders. And that's why Asar Thompson is just great next to him and how good this team has been able to be defensively. But Cleveland, when you have two guards who neither are known for what they do on the defensive end of the floor, it makes things a lot more tricky, like you said, especially when you're going up against such a good opposing guard that you're going to need to figure out a defensive plan for. Dean Wade wasn't active in that Friday night game against Detroit. I feel like he'd likely be the fifth starter with that top four, and like
Jalen Tyson didn't do too bad against him. I feel like he guarded KD.
Yeah. And Tyson's been really good for them. Like even before Harden came in there, I think he was, especially with Garland's injury, like he's gotten a ton of run and has been good and is a much better defender than the other two guards they have. So yeah, that's probably the other option too. And like Craig Porter Jr. is like solid off the bench. And obviously they brought in Keon Ellis, who wasn't active Friday night either. He's a good call guard defensively. So you might see him a bit, but I feel like there's a lot more finagling you have to do. And like, okay, if you put the fifth starter, whoever that might be, if it's Tyson, Ellis, or like Dean Wade on Cade, then like one of Allen or Mitchell or Harden is going to take like Duncan Robinson and Asar, maybe, unless what you said, like Mobley takes Asar and Harden or Mitchell take Tobias Harris. But if that's the case, like Robinson and Harris are going to have a ton of open threes, and maybe that's the recipe teams want to take against the Pistons in Detroit, because they haven't been a good 3-point shooting team. And I think that's their glaring weakness as you enter the postseason. But if the shots are falling and they're not going to fall every night, like Cade is one of the best playmakers in the league right now. So he can just beat you that way, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think with that Cleveland game, like Jarrett Allen's floater is lethal. Like it's such a money floater. Is there a team that who's at the top of your list of like I think this could go 7 games kind of thing?
Oh, that's a tough question.
I think mine's Boston. I think I fear Boston the most.
That was going to be mine too. And I mean, it's not really the, shout out to Camille, who's joining in the live chat, but he just threw in the last 4 games. The Pistons are 26 of 120 from 3. So that is not great. So that's why shooting is something we talk about so often. But yeah, I'm with you on Boston. And I mean, it's not even the Tatum of it. Like, we don't know when we're going to see Tatum, if we're going to see him. The thought has always been like, once he feels 100%, he's going to come back. But just the fact that Boston's been able to stay really as the second seed. The Knicks are only a game behind them right now. And I know they gave up Anthony Simons at the trade deadline, but I do like them bringing in Vooch. Keita's been a good starting center for them this year. That was their question going into the season, is just the front court and the front court depth. So I like what they did with Vooch. He's not the player he once was, obviously, but he's a guy that has been able to kill the Pistons at times over his career. And we know that this team specifically, I mean, any team has a hard time guarding bigs who can shoot the ball. That's why they're in such high demand. But Jaylen Brown's having a career year. Peyton Pritchard and Derek White have been really good alongside him as well. I mean, I think for the Pistons to beat Boston, unless something has changed drastically over the last week, the last time I looked at it, they are far behind, last in the NBA at getting to the free throw line. And I just think when you have a tough defensive team like Detroit, the way you want to beat them is trying to get their key players in foul trouble and make them go to different looks and just rough up the game, I guess. And I feel like Boston hasn't really been able to do that. I think they're last in the NBA in pace as well. So the Pistons will be able to take advantage there when you have a team with Asar Thompson and Ron Holland and Cade and Jalen Duren. Boston's not going to be able to keep up with that. So I think there is a recipe to beat the Celtics. But yeah, they would be my answer of the team I would be most afraid of in a playoff series. And I think right behind them would be Cleveland. Obviously, the other one is the Knicks, and they'd be tough to get behind too. But I do think if I'm just looking at those three teams, and even if you go all the way down to everyone else in playoff conversation, it would be Boston for me.
Yeah, that would be my top three as well. It's fascinating how different the two teams are. And I mean, between Detroit and Boston, the way they play, how they get their points. And I'm not even, I'm in the same boat as you where I'm not even thinking about Tatum returning, just talking about this current Boston team. And I do like the acquisition of Vooch for them just to give them a different look than Keita. Similar to the Horford thing of having kind of a stretch five off the bench like they used to have. It's fascinating, though, that I wonder if they're last in free throws because they also just shoot so many threes, that they're not getting to the rim. And it's we only get to the rim, basically. Yeah. So it's just it would be a very fun series, though. But I think that would be my top three as well.
Yeah, that's true. It's I think it's Jaylen Brown takes 7 free throws a game. And then after that, no one else takes more than 3. But I mean, you're right. It's Peyton Pritchard and White, who, I mean, Pritchard, his game isn't really to get to the rim. White can do it a little bit more. And then Vooch himself plays on the perimeter as well. So, yeah, I mean, and the other side to that is that's nothing new with Boston. They've been that way even in their championship year and even when they had a healthy Jason Tatum. But I just think it might play into the Pistons' advantage a little bit just because of how physical they are. And when the whistle gets loosened up a bit in the playoffs, I think it might help them. But let's get into some questions. And if anyone's joining us live here, feel free to throw any questions you have in the chat. We'll start out with a live question we have here from Pistons Fan 11. And we've touched on this shooting. I think it's probably the most important topic with this team. But his question is, where do we go to get more 3-point shooting, whether it's Sasser, Kevin Huerter, Chaz Lanier, Chris Middleton, or no change, you think? I was going to bring up Chris Middleton just to get your thoughts on that. Obviously a big buyout candidate guy after he goes to the Mavs in the AD trade. Mark Stein reported, I believe it was yesterday, that Chris Middleton thinks he's going to spend the rest of the season in Dallas. So I don't know if that fully takes him off the table, but it does seem like he may not be available in the buyout market. So where do you think more three-point shooting comes from, whether it's someone on the roster, someone on the buyout market, or is it just like doing more of the same and playing the same look, not necessarily giving anyone more minutes and potentially the players that you have just making more shots?
Right. I feel bad now. When I gave you my list of 9 through 12, I just realized I forgot Herder on it. So I guess I will leave Herder out of this.
It's easy
one.
to not notice Kevin Herder watching Pistons games right now.
Yes. The trade on paper makes a ton of sense. I just want to see it on the court. So if Herder is not getting any minutes at the moment, I'm going to assume that we're not playing him in the playoffs. Sasser is the only one that I feel like kind of you can kind of slide him. He's just been, I always say that he's been consistent with inconsistent minutes this year, and it kind of has been majority of his NBA career. So I think if you're looking for extra shooting with more than we already have that has come off the bench, I think it's got to be Sasser. I don't think Chaz will play. Middleton, I like the idea of, but then I don't like, I'm already having trouble, cutting the rotation down to 8 or 9 guys for a playoff rotation. So if you're bringing Middleton on, who are you taking out of the playoff rotation at that point? But I at this point, like, I think Cade's got to shoot better. Duncan can't be the only one that's a legitimate threat from deep. And I like that Ron is shooting the corner threes. Like, I don't think it's, in a Sarr Monty Williams situation where it's like, can we do something else other than just put this guy in the corner? And I think, though, that they've just sometimes you just got to make your shots, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think we're gonna see a drastic change in terms of minute load or even like a potential buyout or free agent acquisition that's going to change the roster that much. I mean, if it is something different than the rotation that JD Bickerstaff is currently getting on the floor, I think it will just be Kevin Herder getting minutes somewhere. It's just tough because he's had such an up and down past 2 seasons, really. And he gets some time right after the trade from the Bulls, and then he's seemingly out of the rotation right now. I think we might see him being able to be worked in a little bit more, but it's just so hard with how deep this team is and the type of season that Dennis Jenkins has had. And like, me and Wes talked about this, I think last week, like, you're not going to want to take away any minutes from Ron Holland or completely put him out of the rotation in the playoffs. So where are those minutes going to come from? I think the most likely answer is some of Karis LeVert's minutes, but like, he's been up and down himself and he's been good at times. I know all the talk around Karis LeVert and maybe just his standing in the Pistons fan community, but I think you're still going to see him on the floor in the playoffs. So I think overall it's probably Herder if we are seeing someone get more minutes, but like, it's just so hard. I think the most likely path to him getting more minutes is taking away Karis LeVert's or Javonte Green plays less. Like, you're not going to want to take anything away from Ron Holland. And like Sasser is a good one too. And yeah, YouTube user mentioned he doesn't see how Sasser plays in the playoffs. I think it's looking more like that right now. But maybe down the stretch, and it'll be tough just because of playoff positioning. I mean, the Pistons are 6 games clear of the Celtics right now, so they might be able to clinch the 1 seed earlier than we ever thought they could, if anyone ever thought they would be the 1 seed in the East this year. So maybe you can play a bit with, but I just don't see you wanting to rock the boat that much with the type of season this group has had. So I see it more so living and dying by Duncan Robinson and what Tobias Harris gives you. And yeah, if Cade can shoot better, that would be great. He did the first few games after the All-Star break. So hopefully he can keep that up too. But just with everything that Cade's doing, I'm not like super staunch on Cade Cunningham needs to shoot better from three, you know?
Yeah, yes. He's carrying quite a load already. That MVP is going to be a heavy trophy to carry around. So
100%. Let's actually, that's a great transition by you, because we do have an MVP question on Cade from Epic Wayne in the DVB comments. And I'll give a little more context to this one just because we can't put that many characters in here. But his thought is he not alone in not particularly wanting Cade to win the MVP? And just to go further on that, the thought is just narratives being built in if SGA, Jokic, and Wemby miss the cutoff for games played, and Cade sort of becomes the MVP by default, and therefore the award has less legitimacy. And then he just goes on to say that like Cade's had a great season and is shouldering a huge amount for this team that is overperforming. And I think there's just a huge argument that Cade should be the MVP, but maybe his level of play and impact is still below that like Shea, Jokic, Giannis tier. And just to make sure, because Epic Wayne did say this, it's no slight to Cade. It's just how good those players are. So I believe SGA is coming back if he didn't already. But if there is a situation where SGA and Jokic and even Wemby specifically are not eligible to win MVP, how would you feel if that's how Cade Cunningham wins his first MVP, hopefully?
this question kind of reminds me of the bubble championship. Like, you know, like, hey, is this a real championship if it was won in the bubble? Kind of like, hey, is this going to be a real MVP if 4 other front runners, you know, didn't hit the 65 game mark? I want Cade to win MVP so badly, and I don't care how it happens. I do not think that just because Shea or Jokic may not hit the game mark means that Cade is still not deserving of it, especially considering, you know, like they are far and away the best team in the East. You said what, 6 games now after tonight's win? So like it's nowhere close, and I'm almost positive that the Spurs Thunder between the 1-2 on their side is well within 6 games. It's not like the Thunder have this giant lead on the Spurs that we do.
2.5 games,
2.5 games. So, you know, it's just the whole just like the whole talk about like who's going to come out of the East has been so interesting to me, because like Cade has consistently like just been the same guy night after night, and I you know, it's not his fault if other players can't hit, you know, the whatever the limit is, the 65 game limit. So I get being worried about like the discourse of like it may not be viewed as a legitimate MVP, but any MVP is a legitimate MVP. The bubble championship is a legitimate championship. So you know, it's not going to be, if Cade, you know, does pull it out this year, I firmly believe it's not going to be his last one either. So he'll certainly have another one in his bag too.
Yeah, that's a good comp. I think where I stand on it is I see Cade Cunningham in the MVP conversation, even if the NBA didn't have this 65 game threshold, which I mean, I think you might see them change in the not too distant future. But Cade is just putting up an incredible season on this team that is far and away the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think there's definitely an element of like voter fatigue with Jokic specifically. Like last year, if I had a vote, I would have voted for Jokic. If there was no minimum, Jokic would probably far and away be my MVP this year as well. I think the case against Cade right now is he just needs to score a little bit more, but I don't think that's fully his game. Like maybe tonight got him towards 10 assists per game, but he's like right next to that. And the only player in front of him in terms of assists is Jokic. And he's still doing that while averaging close to 26 points a game. And I think it really is a team context argument. Like Shea has been incredible at averaging above 31 a game. I think Luka is leading the league, but I don't see Luka having a legitimate case with just how the Lakers are and everything. I mean, he's had a great season. So, yeah, I mean, if either SGA or Jokic remain eligible, I think it'll be really tough for Cade to win MVP, but I think he has like a legitimate argument either way. If that's like if everyone becomes ineligible and that's how Cade wins the award, I can see how there will be like a discussion around it. But I'm hoping, like, at least in my eyes, it wouldn't be at the slight of Cade Cunningham. It would just be this crazy high requirement that the league has, which they put in place for a reason, which I think is a good reason, but it's not working out incredibly well. I think if Shea and Jokic and Wemby are both ineligible, and YouTube user brought up he thinks Cade's just been better than Wemby, which I totally agree with. But if those players aren't eligible, I think Jaylen Brown has a decent case as well. But I think Cade is right in that tier with Jokic and Shea this year. I'd put both of those players a little bit higher than Cade. But I'm with you. I think if you win an MVP, it's a legitimate one. Like, you can't put an asterisk around it. Like, you win the MVP for a reason. So you just can't discredit it. You can talk about the NBA's rules and everything, but if you're watching this team, and more people have with all the national TV spotlight they've been getting, like, you know how important Cade Cunningham is to everything. So you can't take that away.
Yeah, so I've been wondering. So one, I think like Shea is definitely a scoring guard, whereas I feel like Cade is a point guard. Like he can do both, right? He can score and he can play make. I feel like Cade does such a good job of making players around him better, whether it's Beasley last year. I think Duncan's having a great year. You could look at Javonte Green. You could look at Duren. Like, I think Cade really brings out the best game in other people. And so I wonder, like, just a thought experiment, if you pluck Cade and Shea off of their respective teams, what do those teams look like? How do those teams operate without their star players? And I think Detroit looks like a much more disorganized team than the Thunder would if they don't have Cade there. Like, I think the Thunder still have more pieces that they could help figure out how to win, but Cade is he's the engine, and that's why I think he truly is like the most valuable to this team.
Yeah, it's a good point, because I feel like, I mean, I'm sure the NBA has this somewhere, but I don't know how much it's followed. Like, there needs to be a definition almost, or like criteria for the award, because I think someone in the DBB comments was saying how it's a popularity contest and like just
like a vibes-based vote.
Yeah, 100%. So, I mean, I think, if you're comparing those players, like, it's tough because they're two of the best players in the league, but like, I do think Cade is more important to the current Pistons success than SGA is. I mean, I don't think the Thunder would be anything close to what they are without Shea, but just if you're comparing it in that lens, and you could say the same thing about about Jokic as well. And yeah, shout out to Pistons fan 11. I was going to say we had a whole shooting conversation without talking about Malik Beasley, and yeah, maybe Bad Bunny will trade him to us if whatever gets
I don't know what we need to send back in return, but we'll do it.
Oh man, yeah. Hopefully no draft picks are going out in trade or anything. But we'll jump to a voicemail question that we got here from a fella. And also wanted to shout out Andy from Atlanta, who left a nice shout out on the voice line that he mentioned just not to play on the show, but appreciate you for the kind words and everything. But yeah, we'll jump into this voicemail from a fella.
Question for you. I was reading a little article about Asar's benching, and it made me think about JB Bickerstaff as a coach. So I wanted to know, how do you feel JB is doing with coaching up to this point, be it in team management, minutes, offensive scheme, defensive scheme? Where do you see Coach Bickerstaff overall ranking when it comes to coaching? All right. I can't wait to hear from you on the pod. Y'all have a great one.
All right, Robbie. So yeah, we'll talk more about Asar in a little bit, but JB Bickerstaff as a whole, where do you see him overall, I guess, schematically? What sticks out to you?
Yeah, I feel like I could do a whole podcast of just talking about JB Bickerstaff because I feel like he has done such a fantastic job. Like I feel like I can see what he's trying to do on the court. I feel like I can see adjustments take place. I can see how he's trying to put players in positions to succeed. We'll get deeper into Asar, but like one thing I noticed with Asar tonight, I feel like what JB has done a really good job of is helping Asar still be a threat off ball when somebody's like disrespecting his jump shot. You know what I mean? I feel like he's done a really good job of instantly going into a dribble handoff with like Duncan Robinson or moving the ball, like just continuing to develop his game to where, you know, if the jumper's not there, if he doesn't want to shoot, what else can you do in that moment? So defensively, I think this is what well, maybe not, you know, one of the top three defenses in the league, but you know, JB came in as a defensive guy, and I think, like, I wonder how much credit does JB deserve for Duren's year this year? You know, with he's been better defensively. He's made such a big jump that now, you know, like I'm regretting that we didn't get him for 5 for 150 or whatever we could have gotten him for this summer. And I just like, I don't know of the last coach that we've had that I think has been as good as JB. I don't know if SVG, Stan Van Gundy, was maybe. I am just a huge fan of JB Bickerstaff. So I think the biggest difference, especially from Monty, is I feel like there is a conscious effort to put players in like a position on the floor that plays to their strengths. And like, they just keep going back to it over and over again. So, and this is, you know, on top of who he seems as a person and how he leads, you know, in the locker room. So I've been a huge fan of how he's done, and I hope he's around for a while, honestly.
Yeah, that's good to bring up Duren's growth really under JB. I think Isaiah Stewart is
another great one.
Yeah, of that as well. Like with Monty, Stu, I mean, he had a good season. He was shooting the ball and doing it pretty well, but we had conversations that he probably wasn't being used in the role that was best suited for him. JB Bickerstaff comes in, Isaiah Stewart comes off the bench, is playing as the backup 5 year one. He's not really shooting any threes, which left us for some stuff to wish for there. And then this year you see him shoot the ball a little bit more. He's turned into probably the best rim protector in the league. I think he should have more chatter around him for like defensive player of the year and sixth man of the year. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I don't think you've seen JB put players in positions where they have to like bite off more than they can chew. And maybe if that happens, it's adjusted pretty quickly. I think we see that with how he's used like Dennis Jenkins, like giving him a little bit of run and then he plays well and then you have more of a role in the rotation, and then how you're using Asar as well. And yeah, I think defensively, it like JB Bickerstaff has always harped on the defensive end of things. So I'm not shocked that this team that's really their calling card. Like you said, maybe I didn't think that they were going to be one of the best defenses in the league, but that certainly helps. I mean, I think the only flaw you can say with JB Bickerstaff is he doesn't use his challenges as well as he should, which I think you can look past. Like sometimes, yeah, it's like, okay, I wish we didn't use that challenge on like halfway through the first quarter. But other than that, I think he's just been huge for the growth of this team and just like where they stand right now, as much as a coach could be. And yeah, it's just like the craziest delta between two coaches, between Monty Williams and JB Bickerstaff.
I think JB challenged within like the first 2 minutes of tonight's
yes, he did. Too. And it worked out, right?
Yeah, it did. He got that one. Can you pull up YouTube users' comment about JB and being creative offensively?
Yes.
So I do think there's some truth to this. And I think if I remember correctly, when we first hired him, I was like trying to read into Cavs stuff of like why they let him go, or what was he missing that like they weren't getting out of him. And I think it was like creativity offensively in the playoffs. So I think there's some truth to that, but I also feel like he's being dealt a difficult hand in that he has to get like more creative than usual. If my phrasing makes sense, in that playing with Mobley and Allen a couple years ago when Mobley still, wasn't the 3-point shooter that he has become now. But so I do think there have been some roster deficiencies that on his last two teams that he's been handed, to where I think he's being held to a higher standard to get more creative because there's a lack of shooting on those teams. So I do think there is some truth to it, but I also think there's some truth to you can only work with what you've got, in your 10-man rotation. And so I do think there are times, like I really like when, Duncan's running around, coming around a screen to get an open look. And so I do agree with him there as well.
Yeah. And I think JB said that a bit when he was with Cleveland, like, and the two big lineup was such a discussion. And he said himself, like, it's probably not his ideal approach, but that's just how the roster is set up. And like, it's not like he's going to have Evan Mobley come off the bench. You know?
You're not bringing one of those guys off the bench. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think he just like works with what he has better than maybe some other coaches. I mean, I don't think Monty Williams had a great roster around him, so it's totally different. But certainly, like the key pieces, I think JB Bickerstaff has used a lot better. And yeah, YouTube users, right, to bring up Stu with the awards, with the suspension and everything, and potentially getting shut down at some point if the Pistons clinch number one. So hopefully he's able to qualify, but that with a 7-game suspension, that's up in the air right now. And let's wrap up on an Asar Thompson question. And this is from, sorry, I couldn't get the characters in the question here. This is from the DBB comments, and I am 100% filibustering until I can find who wrote this question. I'll come back to it, but he asks, how worried are you about JB's handling of Asar's minutes in key moments during the playoffs? It was a problem in the Knicks series. It's been a problem at times this year. Do you think it keeps going? And this is from Jacob30 in the DBB comments. I finally found it. And just for some added context, let's look at the last 5 games for Asar. He played 21 minutes Sunday against the Magic, 36 against the Cavs. That one goes to overtime, and there's some foul trouble. 28 against the Thunder, 18 against the Spurs, and 32 against the Bulls last Saturday. And I'm on Pistons Twitter. Like, I know a lot of people are questioning like why Karis LeVert is in over Asar Thompson at times. So how are you seeing this? And is there any like worry with how Asar is being handled now and how that could potentially change in the playoffs?
Spurs game, I believe he played 4 minutes in the second half, right? And then I don't think he played the rest of the game. So I'm assuming that's where part of this conversation has come from. So me and a couple friends, when I was teaching, we did some high school basketball coaching, and if there was ever a time that we had to bench a kid, and if we felt we had to send a message, if we felt we had to correct something, and like this is just the way that it had to go, like that's sometimes just the way you handle things. And it seemed like I remember seeing a clip of kind of JB and Asar. I don't know if having a conversation is the right way to describe it, but, talking about whatever it was that JB had called the timeout on in that situation. And considering that Asar had 2 pretty good bounce back games against the Thunder and against the Cavs, and both of those games were above his season averages afterwards, I do not have any concern over how it was handled. If you're upset in the moment that you felt like Asar could have been useful in that Spurs game in the second half, like to win that game specifically, you wanted Asar on the court, I get it. But in the grand scheme of things, if like, look, why I just what JB Bickerstaff is, what he's doing is working. And so I haven't lost like I trust what he's doing. He hasn't done anything to lose my trust yet. And so the benching in the Spurs game doesn't bother me, especially with the bounce back. In regards to the playoffs, I think is where it gets more interesting, because one, like you need him out. He's got to be on the court because he's just a freak of nature defensively. Like his 3 blocks tonight were, each one was I was texting my brother. I was like, each one of those blocks was oh my God block. Like, and he just, so much of his offense comes from his defense. But if it gets weird in the playoffs, like if Mobley is guarding Asar, and if there's a moment where you got to put Javonte Green out there where you have a little bit of shooting and still have a little bit of defense, I think we are going to see situations like that come up in the playoffs. But it's so hard to say when that situation will occur or how that situation will occur. So if I guess it depends what the key moment is, but I can see a world in the playoffs where if he needs more shooting on the court, that you have to bench Asar in order to get that shooting. Do you know what he's referring to in the problem with the Knicks series? Like, because I feel like he played well. I mean, I know that he was usually on Brunson. I was unaware if that was a problem in the Knicks series. I only knew of it more recently from the Spurs game. But it's possible that's a thing. But
yeah, I think it was mainly just like potentially Asar could have gotten more minutes if he was able to contribute more offensively. I wonder, I'm gonna look up Asar's stats really quickly.
Here's what I'll say too. If you're bringing Asar out, who's going in? And like if JB Bickerstaff is relying on Karis LeVert to play extended minutes in the playoffs as like a bench primary ball handler. And if that doesn't go well, then I think, that's where, especially on Pistons Twitter, you're going to, see some issues. But I understand where it comes from, but I also think there are just limitations that Asar has, that if you want to give the offense a different look, it's okay to bring Asar out for that.
Yeah, and so last season in the Knicks series, he averaged 22 minutes a game and just
so lower than usual.
Yeah, and the only game he played like under 20 minutes was game 3, which was that close loss, the first home game, and then other than that, it was like 22, 20, 21. 29 minutes in game 5, 23 in game 6. So I think it was fairly comparable to what we see in the regular season. But yeah, it's just like you said, offensively, if there's going to be times where you're going to bring Asar out, like who are you going to bring in? I see that only really happening if like Karis LeVert's having a crazy shooting night, or like Ron Holland is really contributing on both ends of the floor. Like, I don't think his minutes will be decreased a ton. And just to bring it up to the game against the Spurs, where he played 18 minutes, was the first game he recorded under 20 minutes since January 17th. So he has been getting like pretty consistently that 20 to 23 minutes per game over this recent stretch.
Okay. Well, I get the reasoning for people being upset, and I feel like the Spurs game in that moment was the biggest game of the year too, that people really wanted to win. And so I get it from that side, but it's just, I just feel like coaching is so hard, and especially in a playoff setting of like what needing to know in that exact moment what your team needs. If you got to go deep into the bench to figure it out, sometimes that's just the case. But I think we got a couple good comments too, that he's in foul trouble. We also free throws is a great point. Man, you start hacking Asar. Is that hacking Asar? Yeah.
Hacking Asar. Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. Okay. Before we get out of here, Robbie, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
So with the win against the Magic Sunday, the Pistons advanced to 45-14. There are 23 games left, so you need to go 15-8 to get to 60 wins. Do you think this team gets to 60 wins this year?
So they're 45-14. So that's like 45 out of – okay, so they're like 75% is their win percentage now, basically close to that. So they got to go, what, 2/3 the rest of the way, basically?
Yeah.
So math-wise, yeah, they can definitely do it. It's funny that we've never been in this situation before of like, okay, if we clinch a couple games early, should we sit our guys? Like, do we rest? Do we not want to rest them too much? It's like, I don't know what you do in this situation. I've been rooting for a team that's been here before. So I guess I don't, does the team want to get to 60 and they're like, hey, we're playing at the end of the year. We want to get as many wins as we want. Man, a 60-22 record after 2 years ago winning 14 games would be bizarre. It would be the coolest and quickest turnaround ever from one to the other. I think they're going to hit it.
Yeah, I do. I think, and so obviously you have this tough stretch of games this week, and there's some tough games coming up as well. You go to Cleveland to start off next week, and then go to San Antonio. You still have to play the Thunder again. But if you're looking, so I'm using Tankathon's like strength of schedule. The Pistons are actually toward the bottom in terms of remaining strength of schedule. They're 25th in the league. Like they have 2 games against the Nets, 2 games against the Wizards left. So no game is easy, but I think the schedule is going to get a little bit lighter, and they're going to want to wrap this thing up as soon as they can, which is, like you said, crazy to think about after 2 seasons ago. But you just expect this team to win every night. So I don't think you should expect them to go near 500 the rest of the way. And I think just how the team is, how JB Bickerstaff is, they're going to want to go into the playoffs on a high note as well. So hopefully that happens. And if that does happen, I think they're getting to 60 wins. But all right, before we get out of here, Robbie, thank you for coming on. Definitely. I mean, everyone listening has read your work. They know where to find you, but just for good measure, let everyone know where they can find you and anything you're working on and want to plug.
I had to just look it up while you were talking. The sportsbook have it at 59.5 for their win total. So it's good. It might come down to the very end. We'll have to see.
Hey, the franchise record is 64 wins.
Okay.
So that's in play too.
Like if they get close, do the guys want to rally and try to beat it? I don't know. We'll have to see. But you can follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky at BobbyBuckets313. If you don't already have an account on www.DetroitBadBoys, make sure you go make one. Get in the comment section. A lot of good people there. Good little community. And make sure you guys check out all our coverage as the season wraps up, and we'll have new things to talk about. Do we rest our guys? Do we not rest our guys? We'll have to see.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining again, and we'll definitely have Robbie back toward the end of the season and in the playoffs as well. And I should have mentioned this at the top of the show, but someone I think nominated us for like best podcasts and our Detroit's awards. So just because I should, if anyone would check that out and throw us a vote, we definitely appreciate it. I mean, we're going up against like the St. Brown pod, so I doubt we'll come away with it. But first of all, if someone nominated us, like, we don't know how we popped up on that, but we really appreciate it. It wouldn't happen without anyone listening and all the kind words that everyone says in the comments, YouTube and on DBB and on the voice line as well. So we really appreciate it. And shout out to A Fella for using the voice line again. Remember, anyone can call that number to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.